All right, let's jump right in. We're going to dig into the books of Kings to figure out something pretty wild, how an entire kingdom could just fall apart. We're talking about the ancient kingdom of Israel and its total downward spiral into chaos and violence, and we're going to trace it back to see exactly where it all went so wrong.
Okay, so check this out. This really puts it all into perspective. You've got two kingdoms, side by side, over the exact same 55-year period. In the south, you have Judah, pretty stable, right? One king, one dynasty. But then you look north to Israel, and it's a total disaster. We're talking 7 different kings and 4 different ruling families in that same amount of time. It's just pure political mayhem.
So, you have to ask the question, right? How can one kingdom basically hold it together while its neighbor is just caught in this endless, brutal cycle of assassinations and instability? What on earth causes a whole nation to completely come apart at the seams like that?
Well, according to the source material, the Book of Kings, this entire collapse, you can trace it all back to a single starting point. It's this foundational act of corruption that gets a name, the sin of Jeroboam.
So what is this way of Jeroboam? Well, it wasn't just, a simple mistake or a bad decision. No, this was a whole new system of rebellion that set a terrible, terrible precedent. And get this, every single one of the 18 kings who came after him would be measured against this one original sin, and every single one of them was going to fail.
What Jeroboam did was incredibly methodical. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. It was a called, calculated political move. He made new idols, set up rival worship centers to literally keep people from traveling to the true capital in Judah. He messed with the holy festival dates, and he installed his own illegitimate priests. I mean, he basically built an entire counterfeit religion from the ground up.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. As the source material really drives home, this wasn't just about breaking a list of rules on a stone tablet. At its core, this was a deep betrayal of the foundational relationship between the nation and its creator, the very covenant that was supposed to define their entire sense of right and wrong.
So once that foundation of trust and loyalty was gone, well, the kingdom's whole structure just started to buckle. The spiritual rot led directly to political chaos, kicking off this bloody carousel of would-be kings.
And the fallout was brutal and it was fast. A guy named Baasha comes in and wipes out Jeroboam's entire family to take the throne. But his own son, Elah, he barely lasts 2 years before he's murdered by his own chariot commander, a man named Zimri, while he was getting drunk at a party.
So how long do you think King Zimri lasted after all that? A grand total of 7 days. That's it. A week. The army, which was out on a campaign, hears their general staged a coup, and they're like, nope, not our guy. They march right back to the capital, and when Zimri sees it's all over, he locks himself in the palace and burns it to the ground with himself inside.
Now, out of the ashes of that palace, a new, powerful figure emerges, Omri. He's the general of the army, and after crushing a quick civil war, he establishes some order and begins the fourth, and frankly, the most infamous dynasty in Israel's very short history.
Now here's the twist. By any normal, worldly standard, Omri was a huge success. He stopped the chaos, he built this magnificent new capital city, Samaria, on a perfect defensive hilltop, and he turned Israel into such a major regional player that, 100 years later, the powerful Assyrian Empire were still calling Israel the House of Omri.
But from the perspective of the biblical writer, he was the worst king yet. Why? Because Omri didn't just keep Jeroboam's sin going. No, he went a step further. He opened Israel up to the world, not just for trade, but for foreign gods. He promoted a whole new kind of deadly, enlightened inclusivity.
And if Omri dug the pit of apostasy even deeper, well, his son, Ahab, was about to grab the whole nation by the hand and drag it straight to the bottom.
You can just see this clear downward trend. This wasn't just hitting the repeat button on the same old mistakes. With each new king, from Jeroboam's original sin to Omri taking it to another level to Ahab hitting rock bottom, the corruption got worse and worse and way more brazen. This chart right here really shows the critical difference. See, Jeroboam corrupted the worship of Israel's own God, which was bad enough. But Ahab takes this monumental leap into darkness. He marries the foreign princess Jezebel and then actively starts to serve and worship her god, Baal. He even builds a temple for Baal right in the capital city of Samaria.
And that progression, it just perfectly illustrates this idea from the source material. The faith of an entire nation didn't just explode in one day, it was a gradual erosion. You could call it a slow leak. A small compromise here, an added sin there, king by king, until the entire foundation had just washed away.
As if things weren't already spiraling out of control, a deeply symbolic event happens during Ahab's reign. It's like the reawakening of an ancient curse that serves as this final, blaring alarm bell for the whole nation. Okay, a little backstory. Hundreds of years earlier, when Israel first entered the Promised Land, their very first victory was at the city of Jericho. A curse was put on its ruins. It was supposed to remain a monument to God's power forever, and anyone who dared to rebuild it would pay a horrible price, the lives of his first and youngest sons.
And this just shows you how far the nation had fallen. During Ahab's reign, a man named Hiel openly defies that ancient curse and rebuilds Jericho. And just as the prophecy declared centuries before, he lost his firstborn son when he laid the foundation, and his youngest son when he set up the gates. Now, this wasn't just some private tragedy, it was a huge public sign that the nation was now literally trampling on the very terms of its existence in the land.
You know, the rebuilding of Jericho was like a final notice being served. The slow leak had become a raging flood. The stage is now perfectly set for a dramatic, divine intervention, and it's going to come in the form of the prophet Elijah. The warnings have all been ignored, the lines have all been crossed. And it leaves us with one critical question. When a nation ignores every single warning sign, what comes next?